Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am Trainer Allen, and we are here to discuss the Senate's new Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act. From what I'm reading, it sounds like it's not going to happen anytime soon. Looks like it'll be into next year before we can actually get a bill into the House, uh, back from this bill, back down to the House, then back up to Senate. It's going to be a while before it is actually enacted. I think we're probably looking at, well, it says it includes 175 million for fiscal year 2023 and a combined 580 million over the next 3 years. Now, over the past couple of days since this was introduced, it was introduced December 5th, Monday, and this is Wednesday the 7th. But I read several different articles. It's in every major trucking magazine and even magazines that aren't trucking related. It's actually in the safetyandhealthmagazine.com. But yeah, this is something that everybody's looking at and everybody's looking forward to. In my last video, I actually talked about the fact that, truck parking is a big issue for us, especially with talking about the new EV trucks, right? I mean, in order to have an electric truck, you've got to have the infrastructure for it, not just electric, but you've actually got to have places for trucks to park and then be able to plug in, right? Now, one of the things that it talked about was the fact that it's actually going to allow for some of that money to go to existing truck stops and whatnot to help with getting parking set up that has, air conditioning, electric plug-ins, whatever. But those of us who have been out here a while, when you look around at the truck stops and you see all of the different things that they've brought in to the truck stops over the past, 30 years, they started off with putting, I can remember when they put plug-ins in the concrete, they got destroyed, obviously. Then we got the systems, and I'm not going to name the systems. You all know the systems, but systems up above that come into your window, most of those have gotten destroyed. They haven't done well. So the question is, how are we going to make this work as an industry so that the electric trucks can become a thing? Now, personally, I think the truck parking bill is a lot about that. I think it was when it came out in June. I think it is now. In June, I believe, is when it came out in the Congress, which it kind of just sat there. What they finally got done with it, and with what Senate's doing now is a totally different bill, really. And I guess from what I'm reading here, they don't look the same. Nonetheless, they are trying to fix our parking situation. At least they say they are. $755 million for truck parking. Now, I don't know how far they expect that $755 million to go. And I don't think it's going to go nearly as far as they think it's going to go. Senate lawmakers introduced a companion bill. Okay, so it's supposed to be a companion bill to the House measure that sets aside grants to expand truck parking. One of the things that I noticed is that they're talking about it not actually being primarily for places that are already set up. Like, a lot of the money is not going to go into existing rest areas, but they want it to go mostly into creating new parking, which is phenomenal. I mean, that'll be great because that's what we really need. As far as safety goes, yeah, we don't need more money poured into what we already have. We need new parking. Now, obviously, if we can, expand our rest areas, if we have rest areas next to land where we can expand truck parking onto, yeah, that would be definitely beneficial. but I think that most of our rest areas are landlocked, at least east of the Mississippi. Obviously, you go out west of the Mississippi and you find a lot more rest areas that have lots of land around them that could be expanded onto, and I think that would be beneficial. But the key is we've got to have more truck parking. We've been saying this for years and years and years. We don't have enough parking. We certainly don't have enough safe parking, right? We've got, as LandLine noted, we've got trucks parked everywhere. We've got trucks parking alongside the road on off ramps, and all these states are making laws about not parking on and off ramps, but we don't have any place else to park, right? And I'm sorry, I keep saying we. I've only been out of the truck for about 8 months, and so, it's still a very personal thing to me, but I know you guys are having it rough out there. And from what I understand, it looks like our jobs report is up, which is great, actually. We added more jobs. It was a little down this month, but it's been up over the last couple months. So that's great. But parking, right? The age-old problem of parking. We still don't have enough parking for our trucks. I don't know. They keep saying, well, we have a driver shortage. We have a driver shortage. Well, we might have a driver shortage. No. But even with that said, okay, if you want to bring in more truck drivers and put them in more trucks, you're going to need more parking spots. That's just how that works. But nobody has been able to really get that through their heads, it seems like, for many, many years. But hey, maybe now we'll finally get something done, and that would be amazing. That would be an absolutely amazing thing. What is this here? LandLineMagazine.com. Like the House bill, the Senate's Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act allocates $755 million over 4 years. Excuse me. Over 4 years for the expansion of truck parking across the nation. Grants awarded through the bill cannot go toward any project that charges for parking. Grants awarded through the bill cannot go toward any project that charges for parking. That is a plus. Now, I did see something else that said that they will be able to, of course, charge for electric, air conditioning, whatever else, obviously, which totally makes sense. But I'm glad that they're understanding that this paid parking issue is a problem. It's a huge problem. And that's something that I don't even want to get into. I know a lot of drivers really like the paid parking programs, and that's great. I never much cared for them because most of the times I didn't want to park necessarily where I was getting fuel or even at the fuel stops that I was getting fuel at. With that brand, I didn't necessarily want to park overnight. Nonetheless, it was what it was, and you did what you had to do, right? 70% of American freight is transported by truck. This is the LandLine. Who is this? This is let's see, OOIDA and the 150,000 small business truckers we represent applaud the leadership of Senators Loomis and Senator Kelly in addressing the truck parking crisis that has been building for decades. And that was said by OOIDA President Todd Spencer, who also said 70% of American freight is transported by truck, yet there is only one parking spot for every 11 trucks on the road. Excuse me. When truck drivers don't have a designated place to park, they end up parking on the side of the road, near exit ramps, or elsewhere. This isn't safe for the driver, and it's not safe for others on the road. Senator Loomis and Senator Kelly have heard from small business truckers and are taking meaningful steps to increase truck parking capacity. Although similar, the Senate House bill is not a mirrored version of the House bill. Some key differences. Okay, here we go. Here are some key differences, and this is in LandLine magazine. Grant money can be used for the construction of spaces on private truck stops, travel plazas. Fees can be imposed for the use of auxiliary power units, electric hookups, or heating and air conditioning. No more than 15% of the funds can be used for the maintenance of rest areas. So basically, only 15% of that huge $755 million bill can go into current rest areas, which is good and bad because, honestly, we have a lot of truck rest areas or truck parking areas that are really beat up and could really use some funding put into them as well. However, I do think that putting more truck parking out there is more important than fixing the truck parking that we have. He goes on to write here, regarding the provision allowing for more spaces on private property, private entities will still need to partner with a public entity in order to be eligible for funding. So they're still looking at public-private partnerships there. So in July, the full House Committee on Transportation Infrastructure pushed an amended version of the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act through the markup process by a unanimous bipartisan vote. The next move for the bill, H.R. 2187, is to go to the House floor for consideration. So we've got the House bill, plus we've got the Senate companion bill. All right. I hope that it continues with its bipartisan support. Kelly said, our bipartisan legislation will expand freight truck parking to ensure that truck drivers can safely and efficiently move the goods that support our nation's economy and supply chains. So this is all good news. This is all excellent news, actually. I'm very, very happy to be reading this. And I had initially said that it was that all this came about on the 5th, but I am wrong. It actually looks like it came out on the 1st. I'm a few days behind, guys. Sorry about that. But nonetheless, I am very excited about that. And I know most of you will be excited about that too. It's always good to have plenty of parking, and that is something that we have been missing for quite some time. And that's what I've got for news today. Let's see what we have here. Trucking. This is LandLine magazine here. Trucking company files lawsuit after being wrongfully denied access to trailers. That sounds like a very interesting tale. Tennessee governor unveils transportation funding plan. Truckers for Troops present veterans group with $15,000 donation. Big updates planned for I-20, I-820 loop in Fort Worth, Texas. FMCSA proposes limits on emergency declarations. All right. It looks like there's a lot of things in the news today. All right. Again, this is LandLine magazine, written by Mark Schremer. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration plans to place limits on the amounts of regulatory relief that is granted when an emergency declaration is issued. In a notice of proposed rulemaking that is scheduled to publish in the Federal Register on Thursday, December 8th, FMCSA proposed to narrow the scope of regulations from which relief is provided automatically for motor carriers providing direct assistance when an emergency has been declared. Okay, so it sounds like this is going to maybe slow some of the trucking companies down that were really abusing those, and a lot of them were through the pandemic, through the different floods, through everything. I mean, yeah. While the temporary relief from some regulations may be necessary during an emergency, waiving every regulation in parts 390 through 399 could negatively impact the safety of commercial motor vehicles operating on the roadways. I could not agree more. Yeah, I definitely agree with that sentiment. I know that during the pandemic, especially, as well as during some of the really bad hurricanes, a lot of companies were really, really, really just abusing the rules, and I definitely think it's good to change or modify the definition for emergency to clarify that emergency regulatory relief is needed. Let's see, it says, although presidential declarations of emergency would continue to trigger a 30-day exemption from all regulations in parts 390 through 399, the proposed rule would limit the duration and scope of the existing automatic relief when issued by a governor or a governor's representative for the FMCSA. Okay. Now, this is something totally different, isn't it? This is, once again, taking away states' rights and putting more rights in the hands of the president. Okay. So, you guys, this is something that I think we all should look into more and find out more about for sure. And after we find out more about it, we should be contacting our senators, our state representatives, and letting them know what we think about it. If you're a member of OOIDA, I certainly would hope that you would look into that more as well, and hopefully maybe work with and through OOIDA to see what can be done there, if that is what and I'm just now seeing this, I'm just now reading this myself, but from just that right there tells me that this is more about putting more power in the hands of the federal government and taking it out of the hands of the states. So that is definitely something to look into. Again, that is, let's see, what is this again? This is the proposed limit on emergency declarations. Scheduled to publish in the Federal Register on Thursday, December 8th. So the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration plans to place limits on the amount of regulatory relief that is granted when an emergency declaration is issued. Now, at the offset, that sounds like that's a good idea. I think most people would agree, yeah. Most of the big trucking companies especially took advantage of that. FMCSA wrote in their notice, the agency has no information that suggests that past or existing emergency exemptions have in fact negatively impacted road safety. Then they're blind or intentionally deaf. Maybe intentionally both. FMCSA proposes to narrow the automatic applicability of emergency declaration to the hours of service limits in 395.3 and 395.5. I think that would be good. All right, let's look at the OOIDA's take here. OOIDA says that the FMCSA's acknowledgement that emergency declarations haven't negatively affected safety shows that the agency should do more to grant general hours of service flexibility to truck drivers. Jay Grimes, OOIDA's Director of Federal Affairs, said, "We don't anticipate there will be any noticeable change for drivers operating in emergency areas under these modifications and expect the agency would swiftly extend any exemptions in scenarios requiring assistance after the initial 5-day period, which could may or may not be true. Again, I come down to, sounds like we're putting more power back in the hands of the feds and out of the hands of the states to say, oh, the president can do this, but a state governor can't do this in their state for emergencies. I think that could be a problem. Anyways, once the notice is published in the Federal Register, which again will be tomorrow, the public will have 60 days to comment on the proposal. To do so, go to Regulations.gov and enter docket number FMCSA-2022-0028. All right, again, that is docket number FMCSA-2022-0028. So if you're wanting to look that up, matter of fact, as soon as you can, I would say go look that up. Look up, go to regulations.gov and enter docket number FMCSA-2022-0028 and read up on that yourself and come to your own conclusions and comment as you think appropriate. That's my recommendation. All right, you guys, I have been on here for a minute now. I don't think I was planning on being on here this long. But hey, life happens, right? And here we are. So, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and cut off of here and wish you guys a wonderful evening and a great rest of the week. And I will see you back here next week. Have a good night.